Hello and welcome to this webinar. I am Logan with Cloud Academy. In this webinar, we will be discussing best practices for policy-driven application access for AWS and multi-cloud environments. As organizations continue to embrace public clouds, they need to ensure their developers, employees, contractors, and partners have simple and secure access to the applications running in the organization's virtual private cloud with minimal latency to maximize productivity. That is true whether they are working on-prem or remotely from around the world. This webinar focuses on remote user access. We will explore key requirements for remote user VPN access, discuss available options, and help you ensure your solution is enterprise ready. To take us through that, I am delighted to introduce Rod Stallmuller. Rod is the Vice President of Aviatrix. Before I pass it over to Rod, I want to let our attendees know that there will be a question and answer section near the end of the webinar. Please enter your questions in the chat box throughout the presentation, and we will answer as many as we can during the Q&A section. And with that, Rod, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Logan. And thank you for everybody for attending. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. Today, this is the agenda here. We'll talk a little bit quickly about what you're going to learn in this webinar. We'll then move into some of the cloud VPN challenges we see customers having and some of the requirements that they need, which probably will be very similar to some of the things that you guys are looking for. And we'll have a poll question that actually allows you to kind of give some feedback there. And we'll do these poll questions through the presentation. We'll stop and take a little bit of time, have you answer a kind of a multiple choice questions, and then we'll show the results so everybody on the webinar can kind of see what their peers are thinking as well. We'll talk about leveraging the hyperscaler infrastructure for networking and security. You know, AWS and Azure, Google, they've built fabulous infrastructures and are offering infrastructure as a service. So how do you best take advantage of those to do things like secure VPN access in the cloud? We'll talk about how the Aviatrix product embraces the native constructs in those cloud environments, but also extends those to add advanced networking and security services, which we'll touch on as we go through. And we'll focus in on a smart SAML VPN service for these multi-cloud enterprises, and then hit on a few other advanced networking and security services that Aviatrix offers, because a lot of the customers, while they might be focusing on doing the VPN service, many of the other things that we offer actually connect very well to that and provide an overall solution to our customers. So in this webinar, we'll talk about how to build a scalable cloud-based VPN solution that's consumable as a service for 3 cents an hour. So this is very different than many VPN solutions, which obviously require you to have potentially hardware on site or buy a particular service. This is a very unique way of being able to deliver the service. We'll talk about how we can enable a smart SAML VPN solution that takes advantage of popular enterprise identity providers like Active Directory or Okta or Duo, several others, so that you can use your enterprise authentication and then leverage our smart VPN solution to be able to authorize those users into very specific areas in the cloud. We'll talk about how we're going to embrace the native cloud constructs and go beyond those with the advanced services, as I mentioned. And then we'll talk about extending that VPN solution to be a global user profile-based multi-cloud service. So in terms of challenges, what we see from many of our customers is that a lot are trying to use an open source, open VPN solution where licensing and deployment and management complexity all become a challenge for them. There's limited or no SAML support for most open VPN clients. There's limited or no monitoring and activity logging with these solutions. And a lot of times there's multiple certificates because you put a OpenVPN server in a VPC, and that requires a certificate for that particular server. And then if you use a different one in a different VPC, you now have different certificates for accessing different areas of the network. Another solution we see is on-premise hardware or bastion hosts, which many times includes expensive hardware, and often there's no consumption as a service. And then there's the native cloud solutions, which offer limited user-specific access control, which you'll find in this solution actually allows you to really focus in on what that particular user's profile will allow him to access. And of course, again, needing the support for the enterprise identity provider in terms of the authentication. So let's start with the first poll here. And we'll ask you, what are the challenges you are facing, when you're looking at your cloud VPN solution? So check all of these that apply. Is it the licensing and deployment management complexity? Is it SAML support for enterprise identity providers support? Is it that you have on-premise hardware, no consumption as a service pricing model? Or is it something other that you're concerned with here? I'll give you a few minutes or a few seconds here. Go ahead and check any of those that apply. And then as soon as in 15 or 20 seconds here, we'll show the results so everybody kind of gets an idea of what everybody's thinking out there. All right, let's take a look. Okay, there. So 87% licensing, deployment, management complexity. We see that quite a bit. The need for SAML, and then it kind of goes down from there. But those are two big ones that we see across our customer base as well. All right, let's move on to the next slide here. What happened? Okay, there. So some of the requirements that we see is that people want a cloud-based solution with no on-premise equipment. They want an OpenVPN client, but they want the OpenVPN client to support SAML and a single certificate to get to all of the places that this user needs to get to. They want unique profile-based access control for each user, so we can actually define that a user can get to particular VPCs or even all the way down to a specific IP address within a VPC. They want a multi-cloud architecture. So many folks are in AWS, but they also have workloads in Azure or in Google Cloud platforms. So they want the VPN solution to be able to access anywhere in the world and be able to get to any of those VPCs or VNets. And of course, a consumption pricing model. So you're only paying when somebody is actually accessing the VPN and using the service. So let's go to a lower level and basically say, you need to look at your architectural foundation as you start putting these solutions together. So what we're offering here is a born in the cloud for the cloud network and security architecture that brings in the VPN service as one of the things that it does. But to understand this and what we're doing here, let's start with just talking quickly about the public infrastructure as a service, just so that we're all on the same level here. At Google Cloud or AWS or Azure, these guys provide a compute, storage, and network, virtualizing these services and delivering to you as infrastructure as a service, and they're doing this across their own well-built physical infrastructure. Now, inside this, they deliver VPCs or VNets, which essentially are virtual private clouds. They are the new data center. This is basically the ability to have a walled garden around these compute, storage, and network services and allow you to build your application environment. To these VPCs or VNets, they add a bunch of different constructs, networking constructs, security constructs, operational constructs, even extensions to these constructs to be able to do the things that you need to do here. Now, the challenge is, as Amazon says, go build. The constructs are there, but there's significant assembly required. So for the early do-it-yourselfers, this was okay to be able to prove that you could do the things in the cloud that you needed to do. But as you expand, as you grow, these things become very complex to manage manually. So this is where Aviatrix comes in. Aviatrix delivers an intelligent orchestration and control system that abstracts these native constructs and gives you the ability to orchestrate and automate a lot of these things. So we're effectively building it for you as opposed to telling you to go build it. So we make it much easier to deploy things, much easier to manage, give you the operational tools that are necessary. So of course, that picture would be just in one, say, AWS region, but our orchestration and control layer, this abstraction layer, goes across AWS constructs, it goes across Azure constructs, it goes across Google constructs, so that we embrace the native constructs and then extend those with advanced functionality. So we, through this platform, deliver advanced networking services, advanced security services, advanced operational services, and then extension services. And we'll talk about all of this. And of course, the SAML VPN capability will fall under the advanced security services here. But of course takes advantage of the advanced networking features that we'll talk about quickly. Now, at the center of all of this is the Aviatrix Controller. You can think of the Aviatrix Controller as the brain. It is the thing that keeps track of what you've done or what you're going to do within the AWS constructs, the Azure constructs, the GCP constructs, as well as Aviatrix own gateways, which are the platforms that deliver some of these advanced services. And the controller is essentially keeping track of everything that it has under management. So this could be the networking constructs, it could be the security constructs, it could be the SAML user profiles, the next generation firewall connections. All of these things are known to the controller and have the ability to provide capabilities for operational management. So let's look at some of the advanced networking services, because obviously when you're coming in with a VPN service, you need to be able to leverage these to get to anywhere in your cloud environments. So we start with the Aviatrix Controller and using only, for example, the AWS native constructs, which might include the transit gateway, the direct connect, the VPC attachments. The controller will orchestrate and deploy all of these native constructs for you and keep track of them. It automates the route table propagation. So in order for traffic to flow between VPCs, for instance, you need to have route tables that are specifically managed to be able to have those routes enabled. Now, this is a manual process typically, but with the Aviatrix Controller, we manage the propagation of routes. So as you add a new VPC or take a VPC away, we update all of these things. We can support multi-accounts in this environment. So you can have overlapping CIDRs. For instance, having one account that has a VPC that has the same IP addresses as another account. We can manage all of the different accounts that your organization may have and give you a global visibility of how everything is connecting in the network. And then we can do network segmentation. And while that sounds like a kind of a security solution, it is in a way. This is done not using a firewall and filtering, but simply the way that we manage the route table. So we either have a route to connect groups of VPCs to other VPCs, or there's no route, and therefore there's segmentation between those. Now, taking it a next step and looking at some advanced features, if you look at the native capabilities of, for instance, AWS Transit Gateway, it's supported for a single region, but you can't connect multiple regions so that you have a communication path between VPCs in one region and a VPC in another region. That's only supported with a peer-to-peer connection or a peering connection as opposed to through the transit gateway. So to solve this, one of our advanced features is to add the Aviatrix gateway, and this allows you to have multiple region connectivity within the AWS cloud. That same gateway can provide extended multi-cloud connectivity into a Google Cloud platform or over into Azure. And so what you end up building here from a networking standpoint is a multi-cloud backbone for the enterprise network. So no matter where you have your resources in VPCs or VNets in Azure and Google Cloud and AWS, we have the ability to connect those and create a full mesh of connectivity between these. And you can see there off on the left, this is where we will add remote users to talk to this, branch offices, IoT devices, all of the things that you want to connect into this multi-cloud backbone will do that connectivity through these advanced networking features that we're providing and manage all of the route propagation that goes on there. So this, the remote access, is obviously where we're going to talk about using a smart SAML VPN service so that you can enter into this multi-cloud backbone in a very secure way. So let's have another poll question here now that you have a little bit of an understanding of what we're doing in terms of the networking and the advanced network capabilities. So again, select all of them that are valid for you. Describing your current cloud environment. Is it a single cloud, single region? Is it single cloud with multiple regions? So say AWS with multiple regions. Is it multi-cloud? Are you using AWS Transit Gateway? Do you have an on-premise data center connection? So here we go. So let's see, it's looking like single cloud, multi-region. So I assume that that's a lot of AWS. You definitely have on-premise data center connections, and we will manage that on the routes that come from your on-premise connection as well. And half of you are looking at multi-cloud. So we're seeing that a lot out there, and I'm sure that many of you that have a single cloud multi-region are also looking towards multi-cloud in the future. Great, thank you very much. Let me get back to the presentation here. So now let's go into the advanced security services where we can talk about some of the details of the smart SAML VPN solution. So as I mentioned with the networking solution, this starts with the Aviatrix Controller. Being able to understand what VPCs are involved, what connections to the data center are involved, and this works with the AWS Transit Gateway, but doesn't require the AWS Transit Gateway. So we will be talking about creating a VPC specifically for this VPN connection in our gateways, but that VPC can actually peer with the other VPCs and provide all of the functionality that I'll be talking about with the pictures showing the transit gateway in here. So the first thing to consider is the different types of users that are going to require it, because you may just have employees and have different types of employees, people who are on the dev team, people who are going to have access to test environments, people that are going to actually have access to the production environments. But you also might have partners or contractors, and those employees that you have could be coming in remotely, or they could be using the VPN connection even when they're in the office. A lot of the customers want to be able to do that so that they can leverage the capability for us to monitor and log the activity so that you can see what people accessed and did they download files and so forth within a particular environment. So the first thing you'll end up doing is launching the Aviatrix VPN Gateways and then attaching to the transit gateway or peering with other VPCs. And when we launch, you can launch a single gateway if it's just a small environment. But many of our customers will launch multiple gateways. And when you launch multiple gateways, you have the ability to front end those with a load balancer. And the real benefit of being able to do that is when you spin this up with a load balancer, you'll have one single certificate so that you don't have a certificate for each one of the gateways. You'll have a single certificate for the load balancer. And then as you expand and you need to scale out and add more gateways because of more users needing to access, this will allow you to maintain one certificate. The next thing you do is you'll point your SAML client to the enterprise identity provider. So our SAML client will allow you to utilize Active Directory or Okta or Duo or any of your enterprise identity providers so that you actually authenticate through the enterprise identity provider, which will hand back the SAML token. And then the SAML token will actually be used as you access the gateways. Now, each one of these different types of users will be given a profile that are customized for each one of the users. Now, this profile is maintained by the controller, but it's pushed out to each one of the gateways. So at any point that somebody wants to change the profile, wants to change what that user has access to, it can be changed at the controller, and the next time the user comes to authenticate, he will get a different profile, which gives him different access. And we even have the capability to cut somebody off, for instance, if they're authenticated and connected right now, but you want to change their authorization, their access control, you can actually knock them off the VPN and then change their profile, and when they come back in, they'll have different access privileges. So now you have the ability with these different profiles to do what you can think of as micro-segmentation of what these users have access to. So you might say that a partner has access to the partner VPC, for example. And in this case, you see the little ACL table pop up there, and that is basically his profile. So no matter where he comes in or what gateway he comes in, it's going to be a profile associated to that user or that type of user, and therefore only allow them access to a particular VPC. Or even, as I mentioned, down to an IP address within a VPC. You could have contractors that once they authenticate, they're only allowed to their particular environment. And then finally, you can access from anywhere in the world using what we call geolocation. And in this case, I'm coming through the same gateway, but with geolocation, it would identify where the closest Aviatrix gateway is, and it would access this multi-cloud global network through the closest gateway, and then have you allowed to have access to anything that your profile allows you to have access to. And it's because it's looking for the lowest latency VPN gateway. So let's have another poll here real quick. So in terms of key requirements that you guys would see from a cloud VPN solution, what are some of the key pieces here? SAML support, multi-cloud architecture, global connectivity, consumption as a cloud service, or these policy-based controls that I was talking about. Give you 15 seconds or so. And let's see what everybody's answers were. Okay, so the policy-based Controls. Yes, this is a very powerful part of the solution that lots of customers really need because, and this is really leveraging the core capabilities of Aviatrix. The fact that we have the ability to manage the routes and is what gives us the ability to point a particular user profile to particular capabilities. And then adding on that, the operational capabilities of logging and monitoring becomes a very powerful tool. Okay, let's move on here. Okay. So I want to touch on a couple other advanced security services because many of our customers will leverage these capabilities in addition to what we do for VPN. So the first one is our secure egress service. So this is effectively in each one of the VPNs because a lot of these services a lot of the VPN services are used by developers to actually implement or work on the applications that are running in a particular VPC. Maybe it's a production environment, maybe it's a dev environment, maybe it's the test environment. But in any of these cases, the applications may need to reach out to the internet for build packages or whatever they need to do. And our NAT gateway actually provides fully qualified domain name filtering. So you can say, for instance, this app is going to need to go out and get this particular build package off of GitHub, and you can give it the fully qualified domain name address to URLs that it can go to. And this keeps it from having a virus, for instance, that might get on that application and start pumping traffic out to some random server. It would keep that filtering down to very specific URLs that it could talk to. And then another piece that may be interesting to some of you as you look at this whole holistic solution is we provide the ability to do high performance encryption. And we do this because in most cases, you inside the clouds, you will get 1 gig because these services are taking advantage of only a single core on the instance. And that limits you to 1 gig of IPsec encryption. What we've done is figured out how to distribute that IPsec processing across multiple cores. So we can do up to 23 gigs of encrypted throughput across a 25 gig link. And this would be utilizing AWS's largest instance, for example. And then we also have a physical appliance so that if you want that kind of performance from your on-premise data center into your cloud, we can deliver that and run that same service, but on a piece of hardware connecting out of your on-premise data center. So now let's look quickly at some of the operational services that come as part of the Aviatrix solution as well, because you want to be able to have visibility and troubleshooting capability across everything that you're doing in this multi-cloud environment. So the first thing is a global multi-cloud network visibility. We can look at all of the links that are connected between different VPCs, different regions in a global network, even between multiple clouds. We look at, the visual link status. If you roll over any of those, you're going to see what the link latency looks like. These will change color based on different alerts that are happening and so forth. So a global visibility of what's going on in this multi-cloud network. We also have the ability to simply represent some really complex multi-cloud networking and security things. Here we're looking at VPC attachments, which ones are grouped into different security domains and which security domains actually have the ability to communicate with other security domains. So it gives you a visual way of sort of seeing how this global network across multiple accounts and multiple clouds are connected. We also have some powerful troubleshooting tools. In this case, it's something we call Flight Path, where you can go into any VPC and select a particular resource within that VPC and say, can I talk to a resource that's in, say, another VPC. And once you select that and say go, it will give you the details of how that traffic flows across the multi-cloud network between these two VPC resources. If it can't have the connectivity, it'll actually show you what it is that's stopping it. Is there a firewall rule? Is there a security domain? What is it that's actually impeding the communication? And this can be a very powerful tool for application developers who, before they try to apply their application, they can very quickly say, can I reach an asset that I need to actually support this application that resides in a shared VPC somewhere? So very powerful tools there. Also, everything that you've seen us talk about today, as you deploy this through the orchestration system, we give you the ability to export that into Terraform so that you can build DevOps workflows using Terraform. But we give you the basic constructs of that Terraform based on exporting that right from our orchestration console. We also support a full REST API. So we have a REST API browser if you want to actually build into a homegrown application, but take advantage of some of the capabilities and the knowledge that the controller has. You have the ability to do both configuration and get information from the controller to set up that application. So poll number 4. Let's look at your cloud operational tools and see what's important to you there. Is it global visibility? Is it multi-cloud visibility? And now going back to you guys, some of you said you were, about 50% said you were multi-cloud. Obviously, this is just if you're multi-cloud, is the visibility there important? Cloud network troubleshooting, doing things like I mentioned with our flight path, being able to see if there's connectivity between different resources. Are you using Terraform, or do you want REST API capability to do your own DevOps or build your own applications based on the capabilities that Aviatrix decides? Or are there other things that would be more important to you other than these? So let's see. Okay, cloud network troubleshooting. We hear that a lot from our customers. A lot of our customers really like the flight path capability and the detail that the flight path actually offers when you need to use that kind of tool. All right, let's look at the next one here. So now very quickly, I think it's one slide, let's talk about partner extensions that our system provides. And I'll give an example of Palo Alto Networks VM series firewalls. One of the things that we find that our partners have a hard time with is deploying their products within the native constructs. So in this example, I'm talking about deploying a Palo Alto Networks VM series without Aviatrix connecting to the native AWS Transit Gateway versus using Aviatrix where we eliminate a lot of the compromises. So some of the compromises that you have when you're trying to deploy with the native constructs, and this is important to understand that the VM series from Palo Alto is a fantastic product. It has a lot of capabilities, but there are compromises and limitations that happen when you try to deploy it with the native constructs. And in this example, deployment complexity is a big one because the routes will be propagated to the transit gateway, but you have to manually propagate those routes out to any of the VPCs. And any change to the VPC requires manual propagation and change of the route tables out at each one of the VPCs. Number 2, you get less than 1 gigabit per second throughput. And this is because the native transit gateway forces you to implement an IPsec tunnel between the VM series and the transit gateway. And it does this not for encryption purposes. It does this because they need to move BGP between the VM series and the transit gateway. And so that overhead for the IPsec tunnel significantly impacts the capability of the of the throughput between the VM series and the TGW. And then finally, as you scale out using ECMP, using the native capabilities, you actually have to support SNAT on each one of the VM series firewalls. So on the right side, you can see as you implement Aviatrix in this picture, you now leverage the Aviatrix controller to do all of the orchestration and management. So we're propagating all the routes automatically. So this greatly simplifies the deployment complexity. We maximize the performance of the VM series by eliminating the need for the IPsec tunnel, and therefore we can get 6 gigabits per second to each one of the VM series. And we maintain the source address visibility so we can eliminate the need for SNAT because our gateways are keeping track of the traffic flowing into each one of the VM series. So you can see much easier to deploy, much higher performance, and maintain the visibility. So this is an example of us extending our capability to our partners. We have integrations with Splunk and Datadog and Sumo Logic and lots of other people to connect them into this enterprise multi-cloud backbone. So in the end, you get this big picture view of our networking and security services that you can see building an entire multi-cloud infrastructure, which includes the main point today, which is the SAML VPN capability and its ability at that point to reach and take advantage of all of these different services. So I think now we'll open for some question and answers. I think you guys have been putting some questions in to the Q&A. And
thanks a lot, Rod, for the presentation. That was very informative, and I think showed how Aviatrix can solve a lot of challenges organizations are facing with networking and security in the cloud. So thanks for that. And thanks to our attendees for participating in the polls and submitting your questions. I know this subject resonates with a lot of you, and we've received several questions from the audience. If you do have more questions, please just pop them into the chat window. Rod, the first question I have for you is here. How does your solution support high availability?
Yes, actually, all of our gateways can be deployed in high availability mode so that you can have those and switch over. They're in standby mode so that you can put them in multiple availability zones as well, so that you can leverage both the capability of the cloud provider as well as our gateway capabilities.
Okay, cool. Next question I have here, is client software required for Aviatrix, or does it work with other clients?
These are the top results.
So our OpenVPN client is an OpenVPN client, and we've added the support for SAML there. So to get SAML, you need our client, which is an OpenVPN client with SAML support. However, if you don't need SAML support, we support any OpenVPN client. So you could continue to use an OpenVPN client that you are already using, and then use a standard, for instance, username and password or whatever you would use to access that VPN.
Okay, thank you. And the next one, why do I need IPsec tunnels for VM series attached to the transit gateway? I have VM 300 in transit gateway with elastic network interface.
So my understanding, and I have one of our product managers here, but I'll give you mine. You need the IPsec tunnel for the transit gateway if you're doing it in native mode, because the way that it gets the routes to the transit gateway is using BGP. And the AWS infrastructure doesn't support, BGP natively, so it needs that tunnel to get BGP. Let me let our product manager, who's here with us, to give you a little bit more detail on that.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Rod. So to answer that question, I think
In order to be able to use more than one firewall at any given time, you would have to use IPsec with ECMP with Transit Gateway. That is the reason why you would need IPsec. When you use the ENI, as the question implied, you would have only one firewall active. And most of our customers really want to have multiple firewalls active to be able to load balance traffic across multiple firewalls. So that's kind of the idea there.
Okay, thank you. A couple more here. What type of troubleshooting options do you provide? I know the slides touched on this a bit, but can you go into a bit more details?
Some other troubleshooting tools rather than besides FlightPath?
Yeah, great question. So we provide the ability to capture. For example, you can capture traffic right on our gateways. We also support collecting the flow information so that you can go back and dig into that information to help you troubleshoot.
So that's NetFlow?
Yep. You can send it to your NetFlow collector of choice, and therefore be able to use that whatever the tool that you use for troubleshooting every other network flow in your network to troubleshoot your VPN or other connectivities through our gateway.
All right, thank you. One more here. Can I manage users across all cloud platforms? We are using both AWS and Azure.
Yes. In fact, the SAML VPN solution really is independent of what cloud resource it's accessing. It will authenticate through SAML through your enterprise identity provider, and then you will come in through the gateway. And whether you come in through a gateway that's running on AWS or a gateway that's running on Azure, you will be able to reach all of your different resources across the multi-cloud network.
All right, thank you. That concludes our Q&A session. Just before we close out the webinar, I'll add that anyone interested in learning more. Oh no, we have one more.
Right, let's do one more poll. I'm very interested here. It's actually got 3 polls, but they're pretty quick. So the first one, please rate, how this webinar went for you, if it was interesting. 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. So pick that one. We'll give you a few seconds on this one, and then we'll move to the next question. Okay. Now let's look at the second question. Are you interested in learning more? Obviously, in a webinar, we've got about a half hour, 45 minutes to talk to you. We are certainly willing to go into a lot more detail with you by doing a Zoom meeting or something that's specific for your team and going into exactly your particular architecture. So yes or no. And then finally, kind of to that same point, would you like to talk with an Aviatrix solution architect? These are our guys who really understand enterprise architecture. They understand cloud architecture, and they can design and talk to you about exactly how you would deploy Aviatrix solutions to solve your problem. So if you're interested in that, let's just let us know and we can set that up. All right, great. Thank you very much for your responses there. And then let's see, one more slide, I think. Okay, Logan.
Okay, so yeah, just before we close out the webinar, I'll add that anyone interested in learning more about networking and security in the cloud can check out Cloud Academy's library. The library includes a course we developed with Aviatrix on how you can solve some of the common issues that occur when running cloud networking at scale. And that brings us to the end of our webinar. On behalf of our attendees, thank you, Rod, for the presentation and answering the questions our attendees had. And to our audience, thank you all for attending. If you do have any more questions, feel free to reach out to Rod and Aviatrix or Cloud Academy. Lastly, the webinar recording will be made available on Cloud Academy's website. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.